The night had fallen, and the moon cast an eerie pallor over the crumbling facade of Mercyvale Hospital. The institution, long abandoned and shrouded in local legends, had drawn me to its decaying doors like a moth to a flame. I had heard stories, whispers of voices that echoed in its empty halls, and the inexplicable events that occurred within its forsaken walls. And yet here I stood, my curiosity outweighing my fear. The hospital loomed before me, a monolithic structure that had once been a place of healing, but had long since succumbed to decay and darkness. The broken windows gaped like empty eye sockets, and the wind whistled through the empty corridors. As I crossed the threshold, the air grew heavy, suffused with the lingering scent of antiseptic and despair. My footsteps echoed in the stillness, the sound reverberating through the empty halls like a ghostly whisper. The hospital was a maze of forgotten rooms and crumbling hallways. I moved deeper into its depths, my flashlight casting eerie shadows on the peeling wallpaper. Each step felt like a descent into madness, as if the very walls themselves were closing in around me. I had been warned by the locals to stay away from this place, to avoid the malevolent spirits that supposedly haunted its halls. But I had always been a skeptic, dismissive of such tales as mere superstition. I wanted to see for myself, to unravel the mysteries of Mercyvale. The hospital's silence was broken only by the occasional creaking of the floorboards beneath my feet. It was as if the building itself held its breath, waiting to reveal its secrets. I moved through the dimly lit corridors, my heart pounding with a mixture of fear and anticipation. It was then that I heard it, a faint, distant whisper, like the murmur of a conversation just out of reach. I froze in my tracks, straining to listen. The voices were indistinct, their words unintelligible, but the sound sent a chill down my spine. I followed the whispers, my flashlight leading the way. The voices seemed to grow louder, more insistent, as if beckoning me deeper into the hospital's depths. I couldn't resist their call, couldn't ignore the nagging curiosity that compelled me to explore further. The whispers led me to a door at the end of a long corridor, a door that stood slightly ajar. With trembling hands, I pushed it open and stepped into a room bathed in a sickly green light. The source of the illumination was a row of old, flickering fluorescent lights that hung from the ceiling. The room was a nightmare of decay. Broken medical equipment lay scattered about, and the walls were adorned with faded posters advertising long-forgotten treatments. But it was the beds that held my attention. Rows of empty beds, each with restraints still fastened, as if waiting for the return of their long-departed occupants. As I moved deeper into the room, I became aware of a presence, a palpable sense of unease that settled over me like a heavy blanket. It was as if the room itself was alive, its walls bearing witness to the suffering that had occurred within its confines. And then I saw them, figures, shadowy and indistinct, standing at the foot of the beds. They were not solid, not quite real, but their presence was undeniable. They swayed gently, their features obscured by darkness. I watched in horror as one of the figures reached out and touched a bedridden patient, its fingers passing through the air where the person's body should have been. The figure seemed to absorb the patient's essence, its form growing more distinct with each passing moment. I wanted to run, to escape the nightmarish scene before me, but I was paralyzed by fear. The figures turned toward me, their empty eyes fixed on mine, and I felt a cold, clammy hand close around my wrist. "Help us?" One of the figures whispered, its voice a haunting echo in the room. "Help us find peace." The touch of its hand sent a jolt of terror through me, and I wrenched myself free, stumbling backward and fleeing from the room. The whispers followed me, filling the hospital's halls with their mournful pleas. I ran through the darkened corridors, my heart pounding, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The hospital seemed to stretch on endlessly, its labyrinthine halls twisting and turning, leading me further into its depths. As I rounded a corner, I came face to face with another figure, its form solid and unmistakable. It was a nurse, her uniform tattered and stained, her face twisted in anguish. "Help us," she implored, her voice a desperate cry. "Help us find peace." I couldn't bear to look at her any longer, to see the torment in her eyes. I turned and fled, my footsteps echoing in the empty corridors as I sought an exit, any way to escape the horror that had consumed Mercyvale Hospital. Finally, I burst through the front doors and into the cool night air, my lungs burning with exertion. I didn't stop running until I had put miles between myself and that accursed place. I never returned to Mercyvale Hospital, and I never spoke of the horrors I had witnessed within its walls. The experience had left me haunted, forever changed by the knowledge that there are things in this world that defy explanation, things that should remain buried in the darkness.